Darren Till and Carl Froch have been going at it on social media, exchanging verbal blows. But will they actually get into the ring and exchange physical blows? Will Froch come out of retirement? And what is the future of Darren Till's boxing career after he beat Darren Stewart? That's what I'm here to discuss. Before we begin, please make sure to subscribe to the channel for more consistent uploads. We're out here every single day putting up videos, and I appreciate every ounce of support. Anyway, Darren Till vs Carl Froch. I don't really care about the internet drama aspect of this feud. I actually don't really like internet beef in general, and typically stay away from any drama. It's just lame. However, is there a chance that Darren Till and Carl Froch can settle their differences in a boxing ring? I think if Misfits put on that show in the UK, possibly in Nottingham or Liverpool, either fighter's hometown, it would do massive business. Darren Till and Carl Froch aren't huge names in America, I'd imagine, and Misfits has a deal with Darren currently, so it would make perfect sense for that fight to headline a pay-per-view set in the UK. I don't believe either fighter would settle for being a co-main event on a KSI headlined card, so they'd have to be the main event on a pay-per-view show. The model would have to be pay-per-view because Carl Froch has made it clear that he would need millions to come out of retirement. Proper money. He undoubtedly has made plenty of money from his professional boxing career and other business ventures, the YouTube channel of course, so he would really need a massive paycheck to come out and box at Darren Till, for example. Otherwise, it's just not worth it. He already has money in the bank. On the other hand, I think Darren Till is down to fight absolutely anybody, 100%. MMA, boxing, or even on the street. Darren has always seemed game bred, ironically enough. If both guys agree to fight, who wins? Carl Froch was a unified super middleweight boxing world champion and boasts an impressive record of 33 wins and only 2 losses. Froch has only lost on points, he's never been stopped his entire career, and his 2 losses are against high-level opposition like Mikhail Kessler and Andre Ward. Froch even went on to beat Kessler in 2013, avenging that loss. His last fight was in 2014, so if Misfits or whoever set up a Carl Froch vs Darren Till bout for this year, it would have been 11 years since he last fought. Carl Froch is currently 47 years old and hasn't boxed professionally at least in over a decade. Will he be able to beat the younger Darren Till? In terms of sheer boxing skill, he absolutely would be able to beat up Darren in a boxing match, even at his older age. On paper as well, Froch being a world champion and him being game to fight every major fighter in his era, he's leagues above Darren Till in terms of boxing accomplishments and accolades. Back in his career, Carl Froch was an absolute bruiser. He was happy to take a punch, to keep coming forward and throw 5. He had an incredible heart over the course of his career and just had an ability to grind out wins, push his opponents back when he was losing a fight. Carl Froch had a very entertaining style to watch as well, but in 2025, would he be able to stop Darren Till? I think if they fought nowadays, Darren would be too stubborn to get stopped, but he'd also be very comfortably outboxed by Froch. Even if somehow, someway, Carl Froch were to lose to Darren Till, it wouldn't be the end of the world or ruin his legacy. I mean, look at Roy Jones Jr. and how he was beaten by Anthony Pettis back in 2023. That fight came and went, nobody really talks about it, and even though yes, Roy Jones lost to an MMA fighter, he was way past his prime and shouldn't have been boxing at that age anyway. In the case of Mike Tyson vs Jake Paul, however, that's a little bit of a different story. The difference being Jake Paul. Being a YouTuber, being a polarizing, annoying figure, beating a revered Mike Tyson. Roy Jones Jr. is a respected boxer, and he lost to an MMA fighter. Anthony Pettis is not the same controversial figure as a Jake Paul. He doesn't wind people up the same way. Of course, in terms of Tyson's overall actual legacy, not much has changed. He was past his prime when he lost to Jake Paul after all. However, the difference is that fight drew the attention of the masses. Casuals thought that Mike Tyson was gonna come out at 58 years old and knock out Jake Paul, a 27-year-old active, strong cruiserweight boxer. The event caught on like wildfire, everyone tuned in, and a ton of people believed Tyson was going to rewind the clock and shut the annoying Disney Channel kid up. That did not happen, and I think it kind of tainted Mike Tyson's image with the more general audience. I'm not saying boxing fans don't revere Mike Tyson still, they absolutely do, but in terms of the public, the general audience, Mike Tyson had that mythical legend status built up. And for him to lose like that, especially against a guy like Jake Paul, not an MMA fighter, but Disney kid, blah blah blah, Jake Paul, even at his age, past his prime, it confused, bewildered, and angered the casual viewer. Also, Jake Paul is Jake Paul, and has a bad reputation anyway. This goes without saying, but if Carl Froch lost to Darren Till, it would not be received anywhere as harshly as if he lost to Jake Paul. That being said, Carl Froch has stayed in shape, kept up with training, and by all accounts, has had a pretty healthy lifestyle after boxing. Although he had a young man's style back in the day, using his granite chin as defense and just getting into firefights, Carl certainly has the IQ to beat these influencer boxers, obviously, that goes without saying. Would I want to see the fights against Darren Till and Carl Froch? Yeah, it'd be fun. Froch and Till are both big personalities in the space. It wouldn't be as tasteless of a fight to put on like Mike Tyson vs Jake Paul. Carl has made sure to keep up his training regime, and of course he isn't almost 60 years old. However, what I don't like about this fight is the hypocrisy when it comes to Carl Froch regarding a Jake Paul or even a Darren Till and their careers. He always bangs on about how Jake Paul isn't a real boxer and how he shouldn't be picking on MMA fighters or old man boxers past their prime. That's fair. But in the same breath, Carl calls him out to a boxing match as an old, retired boxer. I get that it's just talk at the end of the day, but doesn't it come off as a bit hypocritical? Explain to me how it doesn't. I wouldn't actually mind if Froch got in there for another payday, especially against Darren Till. Good on him, and it'd be cool to see how his action-packed style has aged in his later years. Genuinely it would, but saying Jake should stop fighting old men and MMA fighters, then calling him out being his target demographic perfect opponent choice, is a bit strange. Anyway, what do you think about the recent Darren Till Carl Froch hysterics? Let me know, and I'll catch you down the road.